Kia ora, Craig Murray here from the NZ Small Business and Entrepreneur Festival podcast. Welcome to you all. Today we're again very lucky to have Ian Cartwright from A.P.E Consultants, and we are going to niche down into sales, low-hanging fruit, and what you can do right now to amplify your business. So without further ado, I will bring in Ian into the stream. Kia ora, how are you?
Kia ora, Craig. Good morning. I'm well. Thank you.
Very good. It's good to see you. Hey, we're going to jump straight into questions now, so our audience can get to know you a little bit as well. So I've got a range of quick fire questions for you. So first one, to help our audience understand who you are and where you've come from. What was your first ever job?
First ever job. I started life as an electrical draftsman. So for about the first 7 years of my career, I drew lines and circles. I was going to be a landscape architect, but I fell into the electrical drafting side of it. So that's where I kicked on. Ended up working for a company here in Christchurch called Orcom as an applications engineer, having done a New Zealand certificate in electrical engineering. So I'd been doing the applications engineer role for about a year. And then ended up falling into sales. A sales engineer role came up. And the curious thing that I still reflect back on is that my father at the time was a customer of Orcom's. And my soon-to-be sales manager said to Dad in passing, "Oh, we think we're going to move Ian into sales." And Dad said, "He'd be hopeless as a salesman, he's too honest." Oh, yeah. Which I think, as I look back now, that's been a real positive thing, I think. So as a result of that, I spent 10 years working with Orcom domestic sales, so really business development, account management rolled up right throughout New Zealand. Learned lots of lessons, made lots of mistakes, which is the best way to learn them. And then after that came an opportunity to work on export sales. So for 8 years after that, I worked with Orcom internationally through Southeast Asia, Latin America, Europe, South Africa, which is just fantastic. Lots of industries, lots of people, lots of scenarios. Then 2011, we had a little earthquake down here, which meant I probably didn't want to be traveling away as much as normal. So I reflected on what I wanted to do from there and had some thought that maybe doing something like I'm doing now in the future might be a good idea. But I'd done a lot of my previous career really in one industry in terms of products and solutions, but across multiple industries. So I flipped out completely, went into a completely different field, and for the ensuing 6 or so years worked for a couple of 3 different multinationals, different industries, different scenarios, really just to prove what had become my model, I guess, for being able to grow business, and wanted to make sure that that was the case. And then finished, to complement my NZCE, a Bachelor of Applied Management in Sales and Marketing, a degree through ARA here. And then I'd found through going into working with multinationals, and the further up the tree you go and the more global you get, the further away you get from customers and the actual feet on the ground. And what really spins my wheels is that whole going into a situation and looking at it strategically and thinking, okay, this is where we are. This is where we want to get to. What do we have to do to get from A to B? And so that's where A.P.E Consulting came around. The A.P.E is analysis, planning, and execution. Because I was really, I was really cognizant that if you're going into a space like that, and particularly dealing with small businesses, they want to see something tangible. So we work with them to analyze their current situation and work out where they are, where they want to get to. And then we put the plans in place, and that's how we got to get from A to B and the things that needs along the way. And then we walk alongside them with the execution phase, which is the most important thing and what people struggle with. So that's where that all comes about. My kids give me a real hard time about it being APE, and I don't have a problem with that because it's really easy to explain what we do. So that was just on 5 years ago now. So that's a real quick scenario of how I got to where I am now.
All of our podcast guests, I also ask, what is your favorite brand and why that brand is your favorite?
I've been reflecting on that since you asked it. And in some of the workshops that we do with businesses around sales and marketing planning, we've actually used these guys as an example recently. But for me, it's Whittaker's. So the chocolate people, because for me, it's their authenticity. They've got really strong values. They've got a really cool history with lots of Kiwiness in it. They've got a great connection with their customer base, and they like to have a bit of fun. So if you think about the L&P flavored chocolate, the P&J chocolate. And of course, I think they've been New Zealand's most trusted brand for the last 10 years running. So it's a bit hard to argue with that. So for me, Whittaker stands out as being something really clear.
Their social media game is high level as well. They get ridiculously good engagement, and it is definitely an awesome brand. And I try to not eat much of it, but it is my favorite chocolate as well. So
it's hard not, even when you go on their contact us page, they've got a phone made out of chocolate. So they live the whole thing right through. It's very cool.
Well, so today's podcast, we're going to be talking about chasing unicorns or not chasing unicorns, and working out discussing some of the tactics that small business entrepreneurs, or any business really, could start now to help amplify their business, even though we're in the scenario that we're in. Can you tell our audience a common tactical mistake a business makes in their sales process?
Yeah, there's a couple really, and we know that although analysis is a big part of what we do, people have done a lot of planning at the moment, and they're really just looking for, what can I do right now? And there's two common things that we seem to find with businesses. We like to get people in the sales mindset that they are actually problem solvers, as opposed to being involved in selling. So understanding all of that is a piece we do up front, and that's a separate discussion more than likely. But right now for people, it's really surprising, and it's really quite rewarding when you get people to look through their existing customer base. One of the biggest problems we see with people is that they're getting really focused on, what can I go and get that's way over here, instead of looking what they've got right in front of them. And when you do an analysis, and a simple one is, if you can take your sales revenue figures for ideally the last 3, but even 2 years is really good, and run a ruler over those and look for 3 things. Look for who your top clients are. Look for clients who have grown in the last 3 years, and try and find out why, because there'll be a reason they've started to do more business with you. But similarly, look for those that have drifted over the last 3 years, and try and find out why, because either they've stopped buying your product because they no longer need it, or they've gone somewhere else. So looking for who your top customers is, Pareto applies, right? So still, it might be 80%, it might be 75%, but we still get the bulk of our business from that top 20%. And one of the mistakes a lot of businesses make is they don't love their top customers and understand them enough and focus on them enough, because that's where your money's coming from. They might focus on the tail. And that's when we say you're chasing unicorns. It might be that you think someone down the tail is going to be your savior with some whale order down the track. And while you're busy focusing on them, the people who are actually bringing in all your revenue could be getting disenchanted, could be looking somewhere else. So it's a different scenario right throughout the country now. We understand that. So as much as you can, you should have a really good understanding of who your top customers are. And we encourage people to, maybe if they haven't categorized them, do it. Go into a gold, silver, and bronze scenario. So you might have, if you've got 50 customers, you may have 6 or 10 that are gold, and they're the ones that bring you the bulk of your income. And then you'll have a range of silver. And the silver ones will be the next level down. And silver can be opportunity. They could be potential golds. So if you can love your golds and grow your silvers and put the tactics in place to do that, that's a good starting point. And there's some other things that we can do around that as well. That's one area to focus on. The second one is, you go.
One of the things you mentioned a number of times just then is that making sure that you look after the people who are bringing in the revenue. So how do you do that? So what are some simple things that you can do?
Some good simple things is, first, that you need to know who's who in the zoo and understand them. So what that means is that if you've got your top customers, within your top customer base, there'll be a number of contact points depending on how big your organization is and how big their organization is. And a mistake that people make is that if I'm a salesperson and I'm dealing with a buyer, that is the relationship that the company has, a one-to-one. Now, if anyone leaves out of that relationship, either side, it's broken. But if you can map within, okay, do I know who the second in charge is in that organization? So there should be 2 relationships going on there. And if I know who the second in charge is, do I know who the general manager is? And does my general manager know who their general manager is? So the more you can build towards a layered relationship, the stronger you are. I just read a LinkedIn sales blog last week, and it pointed out that in some research they'd done last year, 80% of deals stalled if the main stakeholder left. So that if you're working with someone in your customer's group and on a new deal or some new sales potential and they leave and you don't know anybody else, you're starting from scratch. So part of loving your clients to death is actually really understanding what their business is and how you help them, how you make their life easier. And if you can understand that, who do you deal with at what level to make that happen? And then so you have to be proactive in terms of how you communicate with them. So is this a customer that I need to be proactively meeting with monthly, calling weekly, or is it 2 monthly or 3 monthly? So that becomes part of your sales process that you can manage through a CRM, or if you don't have a CRM, you can do it through a mix of your normal Gmail or Outlook calendars and spreadsheets. So putting in proactive steps so that you're in contact with the customer, but you're understanding what it is that they need from you is the first step.
For those out there listening who don't have a CRM and are wondering or thinking that they might be expensive, I use HubSpot. HubSpot's free. And
a lot of our
really,
clients
really
use
good.
HubSpot for that reason too, and it's really good to use.
Yeah, and you can log into, I use G Suite. You log in, and when you open up your emails in the day, and then it just tracks them and puts them in all the documents, and it's really good. What about clients or people who are selling directly to consumers where they don't really need a business relationship, it's more transactional? Are different things that they could do?
Empathy is a big thing, and understanding. So B2C, people are more emotional about the way they buy. They think about how they feel, that affective side of it. There's the behavioral side of it, how they behave towards an object, and then their beliefs and thoughts. So a lot of people are running on empty at the moment. So that means if you're dealing directly with consumers or customers, they are probably a little bit strung out as they're coming to see you. So right at the moment, that's about just being, even though we're under stress and strain ourselves, is really just being a little bit more empathetic and taking a bit more time to understand what it is their issue really is. Because even in the B2C world, as much as it is in the B2B world, it's not so much about your product or your service. It's what they want it for. What are they going to do with it? Why do they need it? What are they looking for? How can I really help you? Because if you get into the mindset that actually right now I need to sell you that block of chocolate, to use that example, because that's what I've got on my stand, it might not be what they want. So it's the listening thing, empathy, listening, ask some questions, then make their life better for them.
And another question, so I'm just going to throw some random ones out there. So normally I do send a bunch of questions to each of the guests, and then I just go off on tangents. And this is one of the ones where I go off on a little bit of a tangent. So let's say I'm a business where I have no customer base yet, just starting. Do you think that there is a universal process that would help a business start like that, when they can start developing a sales funnel, let's call it?
Yeah, Cassie touched on this the other day in her one, and it's about the customer. So if you think you've got something that is of value, then you need to go and find out if it really is or not. And we've dealt with a range of people with some good stories and some really sad stories where they've gone down a rabbit warren of investing a whole lot of money in a product that no one wants. So if you think that this product is going to be fantastic, then the first thing is, who is going to use it? Who do I think it is targeted at? And go and talk to some people. Get a focus group. Give them something to try. See what they think. Because the worst thing an entrepreneur can do is fall so in love with their product that they're blinkered. So you need to be a little bit thin-skinned about it. So the first thing is to go and test your market. Find out if there is a value in what you have and what that value is, but also what's the size of the prize? How big is the market? And if you think about, okay, if I'm out here and I've got my product, and on the other side of it, I've got my customer, what are the channels that I need to access to get to it? And start talking to some of those people, which could be retail stores. They could be trying it direct yourself. But the most important thing is to go and test the value of your idea. Do people want it? Does it solve a problem? And is there a value in it? You've got to answer those questions first before you go too much further. And then when you get some yeses to that, your messaging then comes around, well, what problem does it solve? How does it do it? How does it make people's lives easier? What is the impact on their lives or their business from what I do?
Very much aligns to 3 of the podcasts we've done so far, which one was Mike Hutchinson. So he was the former managing director of Saatchi & Saatchi. He was the founder of Colenso BBDO. And he said, you need to find if there's a market in the gap. So if there's no market in the gap or your idea, then you're going to go down, like you said, a rabbit warren of time and resources, and find out the hard way potentially that it's not. And I've done it as well. So I created an event up in Auckland called Adventure Expo. I hired the Cloud, which is a big, massive venue in the city. I had an idea of, it was about adventure products, and it just didn't. I didn't get it right. And
What did you learn from that?
I learned that the things that you might think will come easily won't.
Yeah.
There are always challenges coming on the way, and you need to be able to change your course to understand who you are trying to target.
Yeah.
Yeah.
What problem are you solving, and how are they going to get there?
Yeah. 100%. So what's a good tactic to nurture your most valuable client base? Like we've talked about some of the things you can do. I've worked in sales for Coca-Cola Amatil NZ for 5 years. I've worked in sales roles in Wellington. There was a number of different things, whether it was incentivizing clients, just keeping in touch, taking them out for a cup of coffee, going out for a beer used to be a common one. But those things have sort of changed now because time is so valuable. And sometimes you can't actually even connect like you're on Christchurch on Middlesbrough. Are there other ways now that we can do things that are slightly more efficient with time and money?
Yeah, there is. I always think that with your best customers, you want them to think, I've got a problem, I'm going to ring Craig. So they might not know necessarily what the problem is or the solution is, so they'll ring you. So if they see you the font of all knowledge for the space that you're playing in, you need to live that. And that's feeding them information which or connections or contacts that they might not have any idea of how to get to otherwise. So you might read an interesting article, you send that to them. You might see some improved business processes they might not be aware of, send that to them. Because if you deeply understand your customer and what their pain points are, and that will vary across the person you're talking to. If you're talking to someone who's managing a warehouse, then they're worried about stock turns and things arriving on time. Whereas if someone else in the organization is more worried about how they're going to include it with some offer that they're doing at the moment, they want to be able to replicate the value. So if you've mapped the account properly and you know all the different people that you're dealing with who may have an input into deciding whether they continue your relationship, being able to ensure that you're constantly reminding them that you're there, but you're giving them valued information, which can just be that email, or for some people it's a text or it's a phone call. Just being connected to them genuinely and empathetically is a really easy thing to do at the moment. You don't want to annoy them, but if you've become part of their business strategically, then making sure that you're proactively having like quarterly strategic reviews, so that you're talking about what it is we're doing, what else could we be doing for you, which leads to another topic we're going to talk about, which is white spaces. But just that genuine, authentic connection. And just one point I want to throw in too, you asked earlier on about one of the real easy tips at the moment, is that still we see a lot is people not using the phone enough. If you get an inquiry or an email from someone, whether it be a good customer or it's a new inquiry, pick up the phone and talk to them and get that into your process and start building that rapport. Because even though we know that in this digital age, people are doing more of their research pre-sales online than they ever have before, there comes a time where they actually need to talk to someone and have someone hold their hand as they go through the buying process. So, and that, which is your sales process. So the sooner that you can engage with them and pick up their phone and start talking to them, the better it is, because then you're someone different. You are a person and you're building that relationship. You're not just another email. So it's communication is key.
Communication. So you mentioned just before white spaces. What does that actually mean in the sales space?
So for me, we talked before about running a ruler over your top customers so that you make sure that you are looking after your existing ones. So if we come back to that theme that we've got of you chasing unicorns or following the money, if you have a range of products that you are selling your existing top customers, you might have a portfolio of 12 products, and some of your existing customers might be buying 6 of them. So for me, a white space is those 6 products. Now, they may not have a need for all 6 of them, but the simple thing to do is run a ruler. This is my customer, and these are the products, and then I've just got a grid. And if I put across where the product matches up with a customer, where there's a white space is where they are not buying this particular product from me at the moment. So there's an opportunity. How do I, if I've quantified that they have a need for it, What are the technical things I need to do to get them to actively consider me as an alternative, and then get them trialing out? Because this is much easier. You already have existing relationships with this customer. You already have the account set up. You know who you're dealing with. If you can focus on that, we all know that it's a lot easier to convert an existing customer to a new product than it is to go and find a whole new person. So those are the really two key technical things right at the moment. If you haven't understood and categorized your existing customer base so that you really do have clarity of where your money comes from, that's a really easy thing to do. And there's some guidelines on our webpage. There's a blog post there specifically about that. But once you have done that, then go deeper. Go down and by product and see what they're using from you and what they're not, and what you could be talking to them about. And that's something you can do from your desk right now, just doing that analysis and coming up with a plan. And then that's the next discussion. Hey, Craig, look, really enjoy doing the work we're doing with you at the moment. We just noticed that you actually also use this product, but we're not working with you on that. Is there a reason why that might be? And what are the opportunities for us to be considered by you?
A lot of businesses probably don't have a sales process. They just go out and do the mahi, go out and sell. What is a good step for a business who doesn't have something written down?
Start. Again, I've just watched Cassie's one again, and we get worried here in New Zealand about being perfect instead of just getting it done. So just write it down. A sales process is a series of repeatable steps that your customer goes through in your organization to become a customer. So they might start out as a prospect. You might have a meeting with them, which then becomes an analysis phase. So there's a series of steps that opportunity goes through until they've become a client. And from that, you can build your playbook. And the playbook is the things that you do along the way as a salesperson to move them along your stage. So that can be even from putting your email scripts together, knowing what your phone prompts are, how you put your proposals together, what collateral you send to them, what questions you ask so you can uncover needs, so you can then propose solutions. That all becomes part of it, but in its simplest form. And you can do a sales process in a CRM, as you said earlier, or you can just put it in a spreadsheet. Just start, take a step back and think, actually, how this last deal that we converted, what were the steps along the way? And what does it make sense for me to call those steps along the way? So again, if someone wants to understand a sales process, they can jump on our website. There's a blog piece about that.
What is your URL or your website?
So just apeconsulting.co.nz. And if they jump into the blog, there's a couple of pieces around that as well.
Cool. We'll make sure that we put your links to that blog and the website in the show notes. So I'm thinking now that some of the audience they might only have one SKU or one item that they're selling, and they don't have a customer. They may not have a customer base. Well, they've got a customer base, but they haven't got that white space opportunity, and they might want to try and get into a national retail store or something like that. Do you think that there is a way that they could do that would be not so daunting and that they don't have to bring their price right down to try and get into these retail stores?
Yeah, I think if another saying I've got is grow mold. So if you've got a product that you are selling to a particular type of customer and they're happy with it, who else is very similar to that type of customer? So you think a mold grows in a spore, the next spore grows next to it. So if I'm thinking I want to go and target another type of customer like the one I've got, first of all, tell your story. So if someone else is going to come and look at your website, they want to see themselves reflected in it, that they're not going to be a first mover. They want some comfort in the fact that other people have used you and successfully. So tell those stories. If you can get those Google reviews, Facebook reviews happening, and maybe have a little case study on your website, or at least have an okay from your existing customer to use them as a referral if someone wants to make a phone call, that's gold if you can do it, but you don't want to overdo it. So again, that's following the money. It's not heading off into a completely different part of the market. It's thinking, where else is somewhere similar that I've already dealt with that I can replicate what I'm already doing, and just continue to do that. So that's the first thing. Look for someone similar, but not in direct conflict, because that's harder. You can't tell your stories, and that's a Kiwi thing too. We're not all that great at telling our stories. We don't like doing that. It's we're all very humble. It's like, I've got this product which is quite good. Would you like to have a look at it, please? If you don't, that's okay. I'm all right. So get out there and tell your stories, but look for similarities to what you're already doing. It makes more sense. And that comes back to that whole targeting your market, working out where you're best to play and where you're going to realize the best result from. And if you can tell your stories, you can focus more on the solution you're providing and how you are impacting a business positively or making someone's life easier. That's where you start talking about value and less about price.
Another tactic or simple free one that is Google My Business. If you don't know if you haven't already Googled My Business, go to Google and ask what Google My Business is, and then it will take you through this. Very basically, it is if someone's going onto Google and searching for homemade earrings, let's say, if you're not on Google or you haven't Googled your business, you won't rank. So it's a really easy tactic. You can put your phone number. I talk to Google all the time. Like, hey, Google, can you tell me where a good pizza is? And it will say the pizza that is closest to me. But the only way that it's going to find that pizza place is because you're on Google. So Google My Business. If you haven't got GMB, jump on it. Do it.
It's like a free website. You can post on it, videos, photographs, the whole 9 yards. And that's where, sales and marketing really runs together. I think of marketing as being the attraction, sales is the conversion. And you don't have one without the other, but you've got to have that marketing piece up there first, so then you can convert.
Mike Hutchinson, he said, a business without a marketing team is like a church without a religion. It's one and the same.
Yeah.
You've got to have marketing. Marketing is life. So he very much skews on the marketing side, but that leads into a good question. Like, how does marketing and sales work side by side or aligned in your definition of that?
So in our world, we talked before about focusing on the fact that you're a problem solver. So if you understand what the problem is, then you can put your messaging together, which relates to whatever target market you're going into. So you've got to do the marketing piece up front. What is it that I do? How does it make people's lives easier? What is the value it provides to them? And then how do I message that back to them? And with that in place, you can then think, okay, these are the messages I need to sell to the right areas, and then you can follow them up. So the marketing sets the scene. And then when we're really clear about what focus areas we're going to play in and who we're going to talk to, then we start talking to them. And marketing is attracting in our leads, we can follow them up. So the marketing piece absolutely has to come first, because then you be clear on what you're selling. So it's a really important part of what we do, is working with people initially to actually get clear on that first. What is the messaging we've got? And then how do we reach our audience with that messaging? So your website, your social media, and encouraging our customers to work closely with digital marketing experts, because we're not, but we know about it, so that they can ensure they're reaching the right people, even down to what blogs you're going to go in, what technical papers are you going to write, how are you going to advertise yourself so that you're hitting the right places, and then focusing on having a sales process to deal with those leads so that you can convert in a focused manner. So absolutely, they go together.
Can you tell our audience a little bit about how APE Consulting could help a small business?
I would summarize what we do as actually helping people understand what it is they actually do for their customers, and then we help them do it for more often. So a lot of small businesses getting their head around the fact that they are a problem solver and giving them the clarity and direction to go forward is the simplest thing we do. One of my biggest rewards is putting a smile on the face of a small business owner when the light bulb goes off and they realize that it's not actually about their product or service. It's about their customer and how they're going to make their life easier, and being able to understand that. Because for people in small business, the whole sales thing is a bit scary. It's there's still the sign, shiny shoes and have I got a deal for you, which is not. If they can get the mindset that they're problem solving, which is what we help them do, and where to go and farm for that business or hunt for that business, life's a whole lot easier, and it just gets rid of the scariness out of it. So the biggest thing we help people is we give them clarity and direction so they can grow their business through effective sales and marketing. And it's good fun.
I've got one more question for the podcast today, and it is, if you could offer one piece of advice for a business right now in our current economic climate. So if you're listening to this podcast in a year from now, we're currently in November 2021, half of the population in New Zealand, where we're in alert level lockdown. What would that piece of advice be?
It's that fish in your own pond. And it's the same now, actually, I think, in some ways to what you should be doing anyway. And that's where your business comes from right now stay in that pond and look after them and make sure you understand them. And that might mean that you're not selling to them at the moment, depending on whereabouts you are in New Zealand. I think one of the examples I've seen recently is, in hospitality with pubs that can't open, but they're still running online quizzes. So their patrons can be at home. They're still engaged. You're still talking to them. And that's tough for the people who are doing it because they're not getting an income, but they are communicating to the people who, when life gets back to normal, will bring them their income because of their loyalty and the fact they've been authentic and genuine. So fish in your own pond before you start going to steal at someone else's.
So you stay in your lane.
Yeah, same thing.
So Ian, a lot of valuable information there. Thank you so much. We're right on the perfect time. Thank you again for your time. Very, very valuable information about sales, not chasing unicorns, white space sales processes, and nurturing your clients. So thank you very much. I hope you have a great day.
You too. Thank you. It's been fun.
And also, one last thing. Ian is going to be at the Entered SME&E Festival in Wellington, April 4th and 5th, running a workshop about sales processes. So keep an eye out for that one. Anyway, thanks, Ian. Have a great day.
See you later.